And that's what I hope that anybody listening to this or watching this takes away, is like the magic, the power, the potential of AI is huge. It's like fire. It may be greater than fire for humanity, or nuclear weapons, right? Or like any of these things. With great power comes great responsibility for mindfulness.
Hello, I'm Bill Yassis, the host of the DrukYul. Every person has a story, and we listen. Today, I'm here with my friend Stephen Torrence. I'll let him describe what he does, because there's so much variety, so much just fascinating aspects to him and his life. And I only recently met him, and I look forward to seeing him as frequently as possible.
Oh.
Which doesn't seem to happen enough, even though we're neighbors.
Literally. Oh, it's great to be here.
Thank you. Stephen, let's start with your journey. Tell us how you got here in Bhutan.
How I got to Bhutan, okay. In 1988, I was born in Austin, Texas. No,
you can start
we can go as far back.
Believe me, I'm interested.
To kind of shorten the first part, I grew up in the capital city of Texas in the USA, which is Austin. At the time, it was a pretty small city, as American cities go. And it started really picking up in the 90s, and my father moved there because of what they called the Silicon Hills. You know, there's like Silicon Valley in California. You've heard of Apple and Google and all this. Yeah. Apple had a little bit of a technology thing going on in the late 80s and early 90s.
In Austin?
In Austin,
oh,
yeah. Yeah, Austin had a little thing going on. So, and he is a computer chip designer, has been for his whole life. And so I grew up with technology and computers. We had a DOS machine, if anybody is old enough to remember that.
Oh yeah, sure.
C colon backslash.
With the green printing that appeared like one by one letter.
Yeah, I think I barely got the tail end of those, but giant monitors, and we had a big one. So amazing. I grew up with technology. I grew up with computers. I grew up homeschooled. So my family is what they call a nuclear family. So I'm the older of two. I have a younger sister, my mom and my dad. Dad worked, mom stayed home, and they made the decision because they didn't like fully trust the American school system at the time to like actually give us a decent education. We were homeschooled, my sister and I. So my house was my classroom, and my mom was my teacher for the first 9 years exclusively. And I had a lot of free time to play outside, to play with friends, to play on the computer eventually, to watch TV. So I say like the public broadcasting and the internet raised me as much as my parents.
Wow.
Yeah. So
amazing. Sesame Street.
Yes, Sesame Street, Magic School Bus. I'm making references that really date me here. But it was good. It was wholesome. It was not so great for developing social savvy. And so by the time I did basically some private schooling in the later years of my education as a teenager, because my mom couldn't teach things like chemistry or physics. So there was actually like a sort of a school where a bunch of homeschoolers got together, and the parents would teach the different kids based on their specialty, like Spanish or chemistry or math or whatever. So I kind of graduated from that private school and then went to university, the same one as my dad, a place called Texas Tech University, 7 hours away from my hometown, but still in Texas. It's a big place, big flat place generally. And there I realized that while I had a good grounding in technology and I could do academics pretty well and make A's relatively easily, I had no idea how to talk to people, much less like date successfully. And so I suffered a lot like socially in college, and kind of found myself with the nerds who were really into Twitter and Foursquare in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And started producing a podcast, going deeper into technology. So I just kind of doubled down on being kind of a tech wizard and just like owned the geek, the nerd in me. And that brought me back to Austin to work as like a an Apple Store technician, basically. You know, I
Okay.
tried to make Genius. I never made Genius at the Apple Store. It's actually harder than you would think. But I repaired a lot of iPhones and learned that customer service or, you know, technology support is much more about people and emotions than it is about knowing how to troubleshoot software and hardware.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, because it's usually the problem is not the device, it's the person.
It's
is
the
that right?
person, yes.
Well, that's really a great promotion for homeschooling. I always notice with homeschooled people, they really dive deeply into their subject, and they are motivated. They're energetic, and it's great. I suppose it's different for everyone, but obviously, your parents really put the work into it.
Yeah, you know, my mom did the best she could, you know, and really more than anything that she taught, like any of the content, she taught us how to learn, you know, and having a computer and the early internet and a lot of free time, my dad eventually couldn't answer all the questions I had, and my mom couldn't answer all the questions I had. So I turned to, you know, in the early days, it was Alta Vista to search the internet, and then, you know, Ask Jeeves and Yahoo, and then Google came in.
Wasn't there net something? There was,
yeah, there was
a bunch of search engines.
Juno, and I used the Netscape web browser.
Netscape,
Anyways,
that's what I'm thinking
Netscape.
of, yeah.
Netscape had search collaborations with. Anyways, so Google came along, and Google taught, you know, me how to find things on the internet, or, you know, the motivation to fix video games so that I could have interesting experiences taught me how to use the internet and troubleshoot technology, and eventually working at the Apple Store, I found that the thing I enjoyed the most was teaching new customers how to use their Mac and their iPhone, and just getting to sit down one-on-one like I am with you right now and just take someone through this landscape, kind of orient them to the world that I had grown up in, but that was like basically a foreign jungle to them, you know?
Right.
So yeah, kind of getting to be a liaison to that world.
You have done that for me amazingly, and you have a talent as a teacher. You've probably been told that before. In a few minutes, you gave me a whole sort of plan for how to learn more on the subject of artificial intelligence, which I'd like to move into that category now. So that was my first meeting with you, as I knew that you were an AI instructor here for DSP, the Dasung Skilling Program.
Yeah.
And you gave me like a 10-minute tutorial, and I just took off from there.
Yeah, great.
It was
lit
great.
The fire.
Yeah, you did. You lit the AI fire. So, and that is the name of your course here in Bhutan. Can you tell us about what you teach in that course?
Yeah, collaborating with AI is the name of the course, which has kind of a double meaning. You know, if you look at it on its face, it's like, oh, it's about collaborating with artificial intelligence, like partnering with artificial intelligence. But really, it's, for me, it's more the emphasis on collaborating, period, as people, and then there just happens to be AI in there too, right?
That's a very different approach than what you first think of. Yeah.
Right. Kind of like sneak that in.
Yeah.
Come for the AI, stay for the human connection, right? Cool. To finish answering your question about how I got to Bhutan, so what brought me to teaching this course is I never thought I'd be a teacher. You know, like that wasn't on my radar 10 years ago when I was working at Apple. I eventually actually burned out from working in technology. It was a grueling job and was just getting worse. And eventually I was like, why am I doing this to myself? This, you know, I looked out at the world and I was like, corporations are destroying the planet and I'm depressed and unhappy and all this stuff. And you know, working in technology is actually the problem. And so I just need to push all of that away and learn how to live differently. And so I actually ejected from my life in Austin. And for a few years, actually about 5 years total, I was kind of this like hippie, nomad, meditator kind of a person. I went to Europe and lived in eco-villages and intentional communities and did indigenous rituals and, all kinds of chanting and chopping wood and carrying water, like so different things from working on a computer, right? And through that, I was really shown the mirror of my own mind and how much I was causing myself suffering. And eventually that led me to these 10-day meditation courses that were free called Vipassana from S.N. Goenka. Basic Theravada Buddhist meditation, focus on the breath, focus on sensations in the body, do that for 10 days in silence.
And this is in, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so this is, you're doing this in a location, or you're doing this with a screen, like online?
This is in person.
I see.
No devices, no technology.
Yeah.
You're supported. It's volunteers are cooking for you, and the teachings are recorded, but there are teachers to kind of help you. Anyways, that like was the first time. This was about 8 years ago. This was the first time I felt I could actually come home into my body, into my own experience. I'd been trying to fly away my whole life, and so I finally landed. And I thought, well, gosh, I mean, I think I'll just become a monk. That seems like a great way to live out the rest of my life. But after a few years of that, and this was during COVID, I was actually living in Vermont and at a kind of a Buddhist cult, more like Zen Buddhist at the time. Unhappy, but for a different reason. I felt I was sort of on the sidelines of this major thing that was changing the world. And it was a bit kind of navel gazing. Like, we really didn't get out of our own world there. It was very significant, and I learned so many important things in that training center. But eventually I felt like, okay, I've established some sort of sovereignty in my own being through the practice. Like, something has fundamentally changed. The Dharma works, right? Like, I'm here to tell you. And
sounds like a lot of work went into this.
Totally, yeah.
Meditation.
There were
many
thousands of hours of just clearing and releasing and settling and settling.
This was a guided situation.
Yeah, yes. With different teachers and learning as much from my colleagues in the community as I learned from teachers.
Yeah.
But eventually I was like, the world is at this critical juncture in so many ways. Like, technology is accelerating in the pace of change. We see climate changing and causing migrations and economic disruption. Politics are changing around the world. Mental health is on the decline. Birth rates. There's so many things that are really unprecedented for humanity. Yep. And I was like, I think I can offer something of benefit. Not that I need to help and fix everything, but I think I have something to offer now. And eventually that led me back into technology consulting, actually, and integrating mindfulness with technology, facilitating workshops in relational connection, and kind of doing the consulting on the side. I was following AI, so sort of, it was on the periphery for me, and nobody was talking about it 5 years ago, in the same way they are now. And I knew nothing about Bhutan, really, until November of last year. A friend of mine went to the Bhutan Innovation Forum. And it was actually a friend that I'd served with at this meditation center in America, in Vermont. And he now runs a nonprofit that leads meditation retreats for young people. It's called Dharma Gates. It's awesome. They're starting to do stuff all over the world now because they got a bunch of funding. Way to go, Aaron. Good. And Aaron came here to Bhutan, on invitation. And we were having a call after BIF, and he said, that Bhutan, the king of Bhutan is building a mindful city for 1 million people. And it was just like, I was just hit by this, what? The king of a Buddhist country is building a city for the world, for global citizens like me.
Makes you sit up and pay attention.
Whoa, let's find out about this. So I learned about GMC, learned everything I could, and I basically my heart was set at that point on coming here and contributing in some way. I didn't know what it would be. And a few months ago, I came here for the first time in March and learned about the DSP, the Daesung Skilling Program, and their need for people to teach artificial intelligence. Through my consulting work, I'd seen the rise of ChatGPT and started working with clients around AI and image generation, all of that. I was really riding that wave, and so I was like, okay, well, how about I come here and teach AI? That's how I got here. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Long story, but
no, not at all. I really wanted to dig in on both parts of that. Your way into the meditative process, and your way how you left technology and then came back to it in a sort of a very different persona.
Yeah.
And I mean, to say mindful technology seems like an oxymoron to begin with, because technology, how can it be mindful? It's just ones and zeros. It's just circuits.
Totally.
We think.
Well,
But
and isn't it destroying our minds? You know, all the feeds
thank
and
you for bringing that
screens,
up,
and
because
you know,
I'm glad you said it and not me. Which so I'm just trying to resist my impulse, because these are words that are out there. These are the kind of thoughts that we are all sort of allowed to creep into our daily conversation.
Yes.
It reminds me of Y2K, when the end of the millennium came in the year 2000, and we said, oh, the clocks are going to revert back to 1900. We're going to lose all our money because
the power grid's going to go down.
the power grid, everything. Yeah.
Yep.
The dollar's only going to be worth a penny.
Yeah.
And then it didn't just not happen. It did not happen because people, as I understand it, applied themselves to avoid that kind of, which maybe could have been a catastrophe.
No, really, billions of dollars were spent. Many tens of thousands of people reprogrammed legacy systems and avoided a genuine catastrophe. Yeah.
So am I wrong in thinking that this may be a similar sort of crisis?
So there's so many risks that come with the introduction of any new technology into society, right? The introduction of the photograph, right, made it possible to capture things that had never been seen before, right, and for forever, right? The introduction of automobiles, right, introduced new ways for people to travel long distances and also to kill each other accidentally, right, or themselves. The introduction of computers, you know, brought with it the elimination of many jobs and the creation of many more. The internet, of course, you know, within our lifetimes, we've seen the internet totally change commerce and industry, business, right? Like there are kinds of businesses that are possible today because of the internet that would not have been possible. Globalization, right, was accelerated by this. And I think we've seen with social media and now with AI that this acceleration of kind of the velocity of information available to us is changing our minds in maybe an unprecedented way, but in a lot of ways it's similar to any of those previous advancements in technology, that the potential for the technology to kind of overwhelm us is there for sure. But because a lot of people I think are thinking about technology and mindfulness backwards. They're thinking like, okay, we've got better technology, we've got smartwatches now, we've got AI. My smartwatch can remind me to breathe, right? Or like stand up and, you know, go touch grass. My Meta Ray-Bans can like tell me about like the environment around me and you know, about the birds and everything, like to make me more mindful of where I am. I think this is thinking about it in the exact opposite direction, because these technologies are so powerful and they're relatively values neutral, but not completely, right? They are created by companies with a profit motive at heart, right? They come out of a largely global capitalist system, right? So the incentives are not entirely aligned with human well-being. It's actually important for us more important than ever before, I would argue, to develop mindfulness in ourselves first, independent of technology, right? Maybe you know, quite honestly, there was an app called Buddhify that was like my first introduction to mindfulness, to meditation in about 2012 or so. And I give it like tons of credit for just that first spark, right? Of like, oh wow, there's a way that my mind can actually calm down if I pay attention and breathe in a certain way, right? Or look at the world in a certain way. Amazing, right? But eventually, like I had to kind of like let go of the training wheels or, you know, the scaffolding of the apps and just sit without any technology in a quiet room with my own mind and the instructions of a good teacher, and internalize that ability to rest into my own centeredness and my own sovereignty, to see the way that the individual thoughts I would have and where my attention goes actually determines the quality of my mind and my emotions and all that, right? Like this basic cause and effect, and then the way that plays out afterward. And I think after that, I was able to come back to technology and the feeds and the screens and everything else, but it's like it wasn't pulling me or grabbing me quite the same way that it was before. I didn't feel like I was like serving technology in some way. I was able to see that, oh, this is a tool that should serve me, that should serve us. And it will, like AI especially, will happily mirror your fear and delusion as much as your like compassion and clarity, right? It will just kind of reflect that back to you. And so it's so important that that we all be coming to technology with as much clarity and compassion and wisdom and discernment as we can from a separate mindfulness practice.
In ourselves.
In ourselves, yes.
And that way we're not projecting those fears and uncertainty onto whatever our, I guess we call it prompts. In
the prompts, the feeds, the way and that's the thing is like, AI represent, especially, and let's clarify here, like, what do we mean when we say AI? I imagine you were going to ask me that next, maybe.
Yes. You've been reading my notes.
Wow. AI right now is largely what's called generative AI. We've had artificial intelligence of many kinds around since like the 1950s and 60s, but it's been things like cruise control on a car that keeps the speed constant, or like automation of robotics, or kind of computer code implementing mathematical logic, things like this. What we really have today that exploded about 6 years ago is giant artificial neural networks. They mimic the kind of function of the human brain, where like, when I was homeschooled and learning every day, my mom was exposing me to new information. My neurons were able to kind of rewire themselves and fire in different patterns. And, certain neurons were created about, memorizing like mathematical formulas or facts about geography or all of that.
Yeah.
And that same kind of function can be replicated digitally with artificial neural networks. And what we're now doing is we're giving these neural networks many, many more neurons to play with, billions actually, in some cases even trillions. And we're giving them all of the data, the textual information, the images, the video that humanity has ever created. Thanks
and presumably
to the internet.
they don't forget.
Well, they have interesting ways of forgetting. I'll say,
Okay.
maybe not to go into too much technical detail, but the current generation that we have, these large language models, and more they're large, multimodal models, so language, images, and video and audio all together. They kind of process everything in terms of what are called tokens, these kind of virtual representations of all of this data, and they don't have an unlimited memory. They will sort of memorize the things that they see most often in the internet, right? In the text. So
I see.
George Washington, like, the ChatGPT knows George Washington. It doesn't know Stephen Torrence.
Okay.
It might know Bill Yassis.
By now it knows Stephen Torrence,
for various reasons. But they will. If I ask them about like, hey, who is Stephen Torrence? ChatGPT will maybe just make something up, right? At best, it'll say, I don't know. At worst, it'll just make something up confidently, and we call that a hallucination. Now, if I add information to ChatGPT, if I tell it who I am in its kind of short-term memory, then it'll answer correctly, right? But
it'll absorb that information, and it will still encircle all the other information out there that it is on the internet, which is just trillions of bits of information. And it will bring the two together, at least for
in a way,
a certain answer.
In a manner of speaking, yes. But I think, like we're getting into these technical details. I think like as more people start using generative AI tools, tools that generate novel responses based on prompts, based on all of the training data, the more we start using these, it's actually important to have a little bit of an understanding of what they're doing under the hood, right? That these are not like magical sentient creatures that think and reason and feel in the same ways that humans do. Their artificial neural networks are shaped very different from actual human neural nets, like the patterns in them. Similar like behavior comes out because of the way that we've trained them. We've actually trained them they're basically prediction machines. They predict patterns based on the patterns that they've seen before. They predict what comes next. If we give them a bunch of examples of conversations between a human and a helpful assistant, they learn to replicate or simulate those conversations. So simulation of human behavior, right? But they're not actually doing it from the same place of lived experience as you and me, right? And they're really like basic things that are basic for us. Like if you tell me your name, right? Then I kind of like rearrange something in my neurons and I remember it, right? Forever.
Or not.
Maybe. Yeah, I hope I do, right?
In my case.
Yeah. But that kind of quick, one-shot learning and adding new information to the network is not something that current language models can do. I can put it in their kind of short-term buffer of memory, but that is different from the actual like rest of the neural network that is trained on the internet. If I want to add new information to that, it actually takes a really complicated, expensive training process to add new information in.
This leads me to what I've been thinking as you were speaking. So there's this enormous sort of uncertainty about the future that you referenced with photography, where people thought, oh, it's capturing my soul.
And stealing my soul.
Civilizations thought, well, we can't have a photograph because that's me. Cars, computer, all of those things. There's this uncertainty about the future that we always have been uneasy about. And now more than ever that we hear about AI and about how it's about to be a huge part of the economy. It's about to change how everybody works. It's about to eliminate jobs. All of these things. And so just to reassure people a little bit, I thought I would ask you the question, and you already broached the subject about what can AI not do?
Great. And like when it comes to, because I know this is a business show, right? Or about entrepreneurship, right? When it comes to really good strategic planning, right? And kind of evaluating the different strategic options that might be available to you as a business or not, or like even someone who's working as like the head of a finance department, too many people are turning to ChatGPT the way they turn to Google, right? Give me the answer, right? Just tell me the answer. Here's all my financial data. Tell me whether we should like refinance, or not, right?
Because there is one answer.
There's one answer, right? But I think we're missing, and I follow this commentator and AI consultant named Nathan B. Jones.
Oh,
you should follow him on YouTube.
I do already. Thanks to you.
You do already. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm sending you some of his videos. So he has wonderful commentary on this. I totally agree with him on this subject that people are kind of using AI wrong in this way when it comes to business. This is why I call my course Collaborating with AI, right? AI cannot replace your aesthetic taste, right? Or your intuition, right? That you've developed over years of training and experience. What AI can help you do in every case, whether you're like an entrepreneur or just, someone working in a regular job or working for yourself, is amplify the best of who you are. If you prompt it in a way to be a collaborative partner and not some kind of like all-seeing oracle that can give you all of the answers, right? There are domains where AI can give an answer. Mathematics, code, chemistry, or engineering, right? In particular, it's really good in these what are called verifiable domains, where there is a right and a wrong answer, or you can test the answer that the AI gives pretty easily, right? Does the code compile and run? Does the mathematical solution solve the original problem, right? Does the ball actually bounce in the way that the prediction says? Like all those things are verifiable. But when it comes to like more difficult to verify domains, like human therapy, right? Or strategic planning or pastry chefing, right? Like these are areas where human discernment is so critical, right? So AI is not going to replace those jobs. It's bad at it. And until it has like a body with taste buds and olfactory, nasal sensors, right? And maybe a beating heart that can, reshape itself based on experiences, it's not going to be able to replicate these kinds of intuition, right? And so, but in the meantime, it acts as a really good kind of like a like collaborative a brainstorming assistant, right? So if you sort of externalize as much of your own thinking process into an artificial intelligence system, especially a language model, it can kind of help you, sort of like a good friend or colleague. It can help you sort of play around with different potential scenarios, right? That Nate talks about this a lot. And like the thing we're missing about AI is it's really good at considering a bunch of broad possibilities. Helps us kind of get out of our own rut.
That would not occur to us.
That wouldn't have occurred to
Just,
us, right?
yeah,
because it's seen everything, right?
Yeah.
Everything that humanity has put out. So it's kind of like you're talking to this like compressed zip file of the whole of humanity, right? This average or this general representation of all human thought and thinking, right?
And the history of
and the history of humanity, right? Exactly, all this stuff. So use that, right? Really let it take you places you wouldn't have anticipated you could go, right? Rather than trying to think convergently and get to the answer quickly with AI, let it help you explore more of the territory of your own thought and reasoning, right? This is I teach this to my students as well, right? It's like critical thinking, curiosity, the ability to kind of like judge things as good or bad, even if you disagree with like another person. All these things are actually even more important in the age of AI. Because we really do, I mean, like I said, there are genuine risks with this. I think there was a study that came out recently from MIT. It looked at a very small sampling of students, but it tested their ability to recall what they had written in an essay, word for word, in the case where they used AI or they didn't use AI to like write an answer. And it turns out that they, lose the ability to kind of like generate novel or interesting responses the more that they use AI. That there is some kind of cognitive decline. Now, it needs a lot more research. This was a very small sample size. It's one paper, right? I don't want to generalize to everything, but I've also noticed this in my own use.
Well,
right?
I mean,
that we do kind of lose some of our intuition and creativity
seems like
over time.
But at the same time, it has to be stimulating you and inspiring you in other ways and other directions that you would never have come to. For whatever reason, we have these blockages, emotional, just memory loss, etc.
Totally.
That we wouldn't get to that idea without somebody throwing it our way.
I think in business especially, like there's this tendency to kind of like fall in love with your own like passions and ideas and your own sense of, it should be done this way. And to some extent, I mean, I was in the startup industry in Austin for a little while, and there was this phrase that goes around that like you sort of have to be, there's a degree of crazy that you have to go. You actually have to go a little bit crazy to believe in your idea so much that you think you're going to be the one startup in 100 that succeeds, because that is the rate actually, right? 99 out of 100 startups are gone within a year, right? They spend millions or in some cases billions of dollars, and then they pop out of existence, right? Not that the people go away, they gain a lot of experiences and probably keep a lot of therapists employed, through the process. But you have to really, it's almost like playing the lottery. You have to just suspend any actual rationality for a little while to believe that, to trust that your idea is actually going a good way.
So true. And let me grab onto that point to go a little bit deeper with that, because it's something that I love talking to entrepreneurs about, business people about, and those who are not entrepreneurs for some reason or another, who are hesitant because they imagine that there's this big process, there's licensing, there's permits, there's renting a location, there's hiring people, there's an investment in equipment. And so you have bypassed all that in your own business because you're a one-man band.
That's right.
You have this... I guess we could call it maybe a consulting, but it seems somehow wider than just consulting, because you're not just helping people to understand technology, you're helping them on a wider scale. So can you tell us, how did you come to that sort of platform that you are now, that you are a good example of?
How did I build that ship that I'm now sailing the world in?
That's
right.
That's right.
It was a difficult process, and it took me years. A of, in some ways, irrational persistence to get there. I had a lot of support along the way. Basically, the gist of it is, I came back from my global citizen travels around 2017 or so. So I spent about the first year and a half, I was not really working at all, just traveling and learning. Came back to Austin, and I was like, I don't ever want to work for the man again. I don't ever want a real job ever again. So I'm going to be an independent web designer, IT consultant. And I put a Facebook post out. This was literally the first one. I said, I will build you a website. You can pay me whatever you want. I just want to show you that I can do a good job, and I want to start to, build this as a service that I do for myself, not with anybody else. I do peer-to-peer web design. And I got a few clients from that. I got a few people reached out to me, and it was all I did it all for free up front. And then I said hey, feel into it, and then just pay me whatever you want. And it was maybe $30 or $40 an hour or something like that, which was still relatively more than I was making working for Apple. But they were small jobs and infrequent. But I started getting referrals, and each time I got a new referral, I would actually, instead of saying pay me whatever you want, I gave them a range, and I would sort of take the last thing that I was paid as the low end of the range, and I would double it or 50% more, and I would say, here's the range. And what people would do is they would tend to pick somewhere in the middle of the range as the price, per hour, and we agreed on that. I lock it in. I'll say, I'm never going to raise this on you. But each time I got a new client, I would sort of ratchet it up a little bit until I kind of reached a level where I was making somewhere between 60 and 80, even upwards of 100 per hour for certain jobs. And that was enough for me to work relatively few hours a week, do really good, focused, tight, excellent quality work, and then spend the rest of my time working on my backlog of emotional trauma and, facilitating in relational spaces or meditating full time, for years. I built up a savings that I could do that. Also had some luck with cryptocurrency for a while. So, thank you,
Bravo.
ETH and Bitcoin, but not anywhere near enough to be independently wealthy like some people. So I sold at the wrong time, let's just say. But over time, I eventually got to this point where I would get referrals often enough that I didn't have to do a lot of marketing. I could put a Facebook post up like I did every year or two and say, hey, I'm looking for clients right now. Here's who I've worked for. You can talk to them. If you know anybody, or if you yourself want some work, hit me up.
I know a lot of young people, early 20s, and both in America, everywhere. And there's sort of this idea that, well, I need to negotiate the best deal I can.
Sure.
So the idea is, I'm going to start out at this high rate, and then of course I'm going to come down a little bit. But man, work for free. It's the work that's important. It's not the 20, 60, 80 bucks an hour. It's it's you that's important. It's what you do. And when I started consulting with pastry, I did the same thing. I would say, I'll come in and make a menu. Well, how much do you cost? Pay me what you want.
Oh, wow.
And I got screwed a few times. I get, oh, okay,
Same here.
Here's 20 bucks, bye.
That
doesn't matter because you are learning how to do that business.
Right.
They should be paying, you should be paying them. You should be paying your first clients because you are learning how to do the business. You're learning how to say no. You're learning how to advocate for yourself. And you're learning how a totally different thing than when you're working in a job, I don't care what it is, you're used to working kind of a routine. And you're repeating, whether it's culinary or whether it's IT or whether it's plumbing, air conditioning repair, you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
That's numbing. You're not growing. So when you want to start your own business, what I love that you did is no rent, no heavy equipment, no payroll, no permits, no license. We're allowed to work for ourselves.
Totally. I'm working out of my house. You know,
well, Uncle Sam's going to take
splitting
his
rent
part.
with 4 people. And of course, I'm paying taxes in the U.S. there. It's not possible anymore. And so I've become much more of a global citizen since then, and living in like Indonesia and Bali, paying about what I did 20 years ago for rent in Austin to live in Bali, high quality of life, etc.
Move to Asia, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so I in some ways I agree with what you're saying about the kind of drudgery of coming into work every day, and that was the thing that I wanted to avoid. I had those years that I worked for the Apple Store are kind of a blank spot in my memory because so many weeks just like flew by, days would go by that I don't remember anything, and I was just so tightly trying to survive within a little corner of my mind, just to get through. And I think that's not a way to live.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur also has its kind of downsides, right? Like, especially if you're not able to get clients from referral. I have a lot of friends who are working as coaches, and it's difficult to kind of like do that business development and get new referrals, especially in the beginning. Like you say, and I agree, I'm so grateful to my first clients for for them taking a chance on me.
Yeah.
And it's still important to me, no matter how much I'm making, to do a good job, right? Like, quality is the most important thing in your work. I think like if you focus on doing good work, everything else falls into place,
I
right?
believe that.
You don't need to set a high rate or whatever. I've actually had at least one client come to me and say, I want to double how much I'm paying you because I feel like I'm ripping you off, right? And like, boy, wouldn't it be great if we had like if everybody came that way?
That's
right?
how it should be. There's and I don't want to disparage the regular paycheck. That's a great thing.
It is. In some ways, I miss it because it also comes with healthcare and
very important.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, but it's the environment, the context. So because if you're with a great team and you're working together and you're producing things and you're creative and you're supporting each other, that's a great job.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody can't be an entrepreneur because we need teams too.
Right.
We need people who are not the owner boss. This is great. I mean, we really got deeply into the entrepreneur part. Can
we segue from here back into DSP?
Because
like, okay, it was a little bit of it going against my like rule or whatever to like take this position with the Daesung Skilling program.
Right.
This is the closest thing to like a regular job that I've worked in 15 years, right? The difference is though, the being able to do it in such a meaningful place, environment. Like, it feels like Bhutan is at this crazy inflection point, post-COVID, things are so different, the demographic change, the audience knows about all of this, right?
Yeah.
There's such an opportunity too with AI right now because of like, it's happened so quickly. Feels like Bhutan has not, really jumped on the bandwagon in terms of infrastructure development and kind of reshaping their whole, corporate structures around AI the same way that many companies in like the US and in China have. And so there's this opportunity, right, for it to be done in a more mindful way right now. And so I feel like, a lot of responsibility for being, one of the few people teaching artificial intelligence in Bhutan, that like doing it right here is really important. And I love that DSP has given a lot of leeway in like how to go about that, right? Yeah. It's not something like plumbing or, maybe even with pastries where there's like pretty well-established ways of doing it well and correctly, right? That kind of a rubric that you can kind of judge a teacher against, right? And so it takes a lot of trust to invite someone like me in who I'm really like figuring it out as well as a consultant in my work. Every week we have a new tool launch, right? GPT-5 is right around the corner. Hell, maybe by the time you see this, it'll be launched, right? Like, I have to really be staying on top of my game and staying in these kind of like meta skills of critical thinking, curiosity, right? Like being willing to kind of let go of my assumptions, right? All these things are really important with AI. And so I have to be in them as I'm like teaching. The way that I taught my second course right now, very different from the way I taught my first course 2 months ago, right? Because the tools have changed.
That's crazy,
slightly, right? Like crazy, You can't say that about, being an electrician, instructor, or being a like construction management instructor. Those things are pretty consistent and have been for the last like 20, 30 years. So I love like my bosses, or like the organization that I'm in right now, just giving me a lot of space to figure this out with my students every day and find the most creative and actually beneficial and mindful way to do it.
I'm totally agree. We work for the same people.
Yeah.
And even though, yes, my profession is a little more established, there's not so many like unusual new things coming out.
Yeah.
And that they're supportive, but they leave a lot of width for growth and for development, and they check up periodically. They check with the students, they check with me, which is great. So really an ideal boss in that sense. So kudos to the Sung Skilling program.
Yeah.
And why don't other countries do this? I mean,
it's so cool.
It's the leadership of this country is so well informed and thoughtful and all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I just read recently that His Majesty went to California to meet with NVIDIA, the biggest producer of, I understand,
graphics
AI
cards, the body of AI basically as graphics cards, and NVIDIA makes them. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's going there and finding out, hey, what's going on?
Awesome. I hope he comes back with like suitcases full of graphics cards for the
country. So let's geek out a little bit.
Okay.
Or you geek out because I'm just going to listen. But let's talk about the nuts and bolts of AI. What is that thing you just mentioned?
So generative AI is built on artificial neural networks. The way that you represent an artificial neural network is through a giant spreadsheet, basically. It's called a matrix, right? And you do each one of those, you can think of each one of those cells in the matrix as like one of the neurons. It's a very vast oversimplification, but essentially what language models are based on is matrix multiplication, right? That's how a generative AI model thinks. That's how it generates responses to you.
Through words, through language.
Well, code. It's actually all numbers, but the little pieces of language, which are called tokens, are each assigned a number, and those numbers are crunched in these matrix multiplications. It turns out that the kind of computation that is necessary to do those kinds of matrix multiplications is exactly the kind that you need to do graphics, right? To do graphics processing. Again, vast oversimplification, but a screen is a grid, right, of pixels, right? And the values of those pixels are computed in a very similar fashion, using matrix multiplication. So just kind of by coincidence, NVIDIA found themselves having the kinds of computational systems that are the most valuable for generative AI. And I kind of remember the moment when this sort of clicked for me. It was about 3 years ago, before ChatGPT launched. I saw like in the early days of image generation with AI, we would be running these open source image generation models. And the way you would run them the fastest was not on CPUs, central processing units, which are very good at a different kind of computation, but on GPUs. If you ran the same model on a CPU, it would be 10 times slower than on a GPU.
G meaning graphic.
Graphics processing units, right? And so I saw like, oh wow, everybody is renting GPUs, and like the demand for GPU time, like computing on GPUs, is just going like a hockey stick, right? And so I was like, okay, I should probably put some money into NVIDIA right about now. And it was a good time. I did not put nearly enough. I wish I'd put like 10 times more in, but like NVIDIA stock obviously just went up. And so they have found themselves one of the most valuable companies in the world now. I think they recently by far topped over $4 trillion in market cap, right? And they cannot make these things fast enough, right? That they are flying off the shelves, as it were. They don't make it to the shelves.
Do they have shelves?
Right? No, they're going these chips are going straight from the manufacturing in Taiwan, into various. I actually don't know how the supply chain works exactly, but they're going straight to the data centers that Meta and Google and XAI are building, right?
Let me jump in because I just had this flashback. A few years ago, reading that video games were going to be the origin of some new huge technology. Did it come from that?
Was that like the metaverse stuff? Is that what we're talking about?
I just remember people talking about, that was
maybe
like some kind of scandal about things being sold. But can we say that AI originated in video games? No.
I don't think that's fair. I mean,
please go ahead.
Generative AI originated in like research labs. OpenAI, Google, like, this arm of Google called DeepMind was actually very small about 10 years ago.
I see.
It was a bunch of like fringe researchers doing some crazy stuff. And they were doing research on things like, can we train an artificial neural network to play the game of Go, right? Okay. Can we train it to play Go better than a human? Mm-hmm. And this was around 2016. You can find a documentary on YouTube about this actually called AlphaGo, right, by DeepMind. You can watch the whole thing. It's kind of a propaganda piece, it still is, but it's very good documentary, where it shows their process of creating this early neural network. Different from the kinds we use now, but similar. They're using training on data, or in this case, it was reinforcement learning, where the system would kind of be given the rules of Go, and it would play against itself to get better and better at Go. It would learn which moves resulted in wins and losses and adjust its neurons, kind of like firing and wiring and all that, in order to get better at it. And at the time, I mean, I remember listening to podcasts about this. Everybody was saying Go is unsolvable, right? This isn't like chess where there's kind of a finite number of states that the board can be in, right? That can be calculated in advance. Computer had beaten the humans at chess, Garry Kasparov, in 1997, right? Almost 20 years prior. Mm-hmm. Hadn't really been any advancements on anything else since then. But Go, the number of positions on a Go board is like more than there are atoms in the universe or something like that. You'd need a computer the size of the universe to calculate it. So instead, you have to learn how to kind of feel good moves the same way that a human would feel good moves. And there's this moment that happened for DeepMind as they were playing the grand champion in Go in 2016, where he was like out on a smoke break, and then the computer's like thinking. AlphaGo makes this move, and everybody in the room, all the commentators go like, "What?" Like, it looks like a bad move.
It seemed like
really wrong, bad. Like nobody would make this move. Yeah. And Lee Sedol, the grandmaster, he comes back from the smoke break. He sits down and he kind of goes like, and he looks at it and he starts thinking. And usually he thinks for like about 2 minutes before he makes a move. He thinks for 12 minutes because he's going through all of his feelings. He's like, you know what, this is.
He's calculating all the options.
And he's like never seen something like this. And he eventually continues playing, and it turns out that like many moves later, you see how this one move kind of like set the precedent for this giant like strategic like encirclement that like it was beautiful, right? And actually players of Go called this a beautiful move. Yeah. And so AlphaGo showed the world at that point that artificial neural networks could not only be superhuman, they eventually went on to beat Lee Sedol and everybody in the world, but they could also be genuinely creative. And so DeepMind got a lot more funding after that. They got to do a lot more. They ended up inventing many of the systems behind modern generative AI, including the transformer architecture that came from Google. OpenAI, Meta, everybody who does a large language model uses the transformer architecture now. And DeepMind is arguably the most important part of Google now. Not search, not anything, not Android. It's DeepMind and AI. Wow. Their whole changed everything.
And that was the origin.
That was one of those moments, where we really saw like, oh, something different is going on here. And I'm sure everybody out there, you've had these moments where sometimes like the response from Chat or Gemini or it's just magical. Or like an image will be generated, and it's like
several times.
Right. It's just like, wow, that's great, actually.
I want to drink more Kool-Aid because it's.
But we have to be really careful.
I'm
right?
totally.
That's the moment that and I saw this in myself when I first started generating images. It's like all my mindfulness just like goes out the door.
You're giving up autonomy.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I'm like, please give me the
away.
Give me the the kind of the dopamine hit and the thrill. It's like, wow, very similar to playing video games back in the day as a kid.
An addiction.
But because of the mind training, I was able to kind of like catch it sooner than later. And that's what I hope that anybody listening to this or watching this takes away, is like the magic, the power, the potential of AI is huge. It's like fire. It may be greater than fire for humanity, or nuclear weapons, right? Or like any of these things. With great power comes great responsibility for mindfulness.
Wow.
Right?
What a fantastic point.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And make this a sort of practical session for the viewers. I have a business. I'm a sole operator, we'll say. I haven't invested that much. Let's say I'm a hairdresser.
We know some of those.
Why are you laughing?
No.
Unlikely that I would be a hairdresser, but let's imagine just for this scenario.
Sure.
And I have a sink. I have hot and cold running water. I have a chair. I've invested in a hairdryer. I don't even know if that still exists, but if it does, I have one. And I'm watching this show, and I said, this guy is really interesting. Now, how can I improve my hair salon using AI?
Great question. So that's one of those fields. I mean, hairdressing is so practical, right? Like the act of it is deeply mechanical. It's feeling. It's relationship based, right? Probably the problems that you have that are most addressable by AI as a hairdresser are ones of, finding new customers, maybe retaining them, and maybe also like all the things that you have to do as a business owner that are not cutting hair. Right. Doing your taxes. Right.
That's where I'm going with this.
And maybe managing employee schedules. Right. Like scheduling and HR. Right. Adjusting like payouts and salaries and all that stuff. Especially if you're a successful business, you probably have like 10 or 20 employees. Right. Mm-hmm. So you can hire a person to be doing those things. And maybe it is one of your hairdressers who just happens to have a little bit of accounting experience or tax experience or whatever. But maybe like it's actually the most valuable thing in your business is cutting hair and talking to people, right? That's the thing you want to be spending the most of your time doing. You don't want to be staying after hours, spending a lot of time in spreadsheets, and then doing scheduling and all of that. So in terms of most businesses, AI offers two major opportunities. Saving time, right? So being able to throw the spreadsheet for scheduling into ChatGPT with a good prompt and say, help me, like our shared mission is to figure out, given everybody's availability and our requirements and our like current schedule of people, what's the best way to allocate hours this week, right? And and if you've externalized enough of your brain into a process that's understandable by the model, it will help you do the thing that took you an hour in like 10 minutes, right? Or maybe even 1 minute. Great. That's an additional hour or 15 minutes that you can spend at home with your family, right? Or relaxing, whatever. The second opportunity that it offers is to grow business and do things better. So let's say you have a social media promotional strategy, right? You're on Facebook. If you're here in Bhutan, you're definitely on Facebook. You need to write content to engage people, maybe create videos, like all that kind of thing. Content creation, again, if you have an intuition for how to do that well, if you know what messages resonate with your customer base, you can show an AI model all of that context and examples of images you've made before, examples of videos, examples of posts. And it's very good at, remember, recognizing patterns and predicting or generating patterns that are in line with those, simulating you, right? So you help it simulate you, but you don't just take the first thing it gives you, right? You don't just take that first result, or the 5 social posts it generates and go, okay, all right, I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to put them in the hopper for Facebook. Read them, tweak them a little bit, right? Be selective,
Meaning,
right?
Give it another prompt, like
maybe give it another prompt, maybe give it feedback, but also, your job then is kind of like instead of being the writer, the copywriter, or the graphic designer, your job is more the creative director, right? So as a hairdresser, maybe, or as the hairdresser's, social media person, you get to direct a team of AI agents that are like amplifying you and exploring different possibilities and remixing them with, the whole of humanity's creativity. And then you get to be the one that says, yeah, that's actually the good one, right? Not these 9, but that one, right? And that's kind of fun, right? Then it's not the drudgery. Then it's not the actual typing everything out. It's then you get to sit back and just, say go.
And it's still your agency.
And it's still your agency.
Autonomy.
Yeah. So I think those are 2 major ways: saving time and then generating more value.
I don't know what to go into. What can AI do for any entrepreneur, any business?
Well, touch daily. Spend it well. AI has, again, coming back to something I said earlier, AI is maybe one of the best creative partners you can have right now. It's aside from a real person, It's available 24/7, right? It's access to most of humanity's wisdom. If you are exploring, like, let's say you're an entrepreneur with a real strong, what do you want to do, right? Like how do you want to impact the world?
I want to bring the best, healthy, delicious food to people to help them develop community and togetherness and share wonderful moments together.
Beautiful. All right. So you start with that, right? You're opening up chat. You're open with that line, right? What are like 10 or 20 really out there ideas that nobody is trying right now that could resonate with my vision, right? Chat comes up with 10 to 20. You hate like 19 of them or 18 of them, but you're kind of interested in 2. Say like, take those 2 and do 20 more, right? Like variations on that, right? And just kind of explore first, right? Just brainstorm, right? Just let yourself go and explore divergent space, right? And then once you've explored for a while, like that's the first step, right? Explore a wide range. Now, this is another Nate Jones tip, right? Now take that conversation and put it into the smartest, most strategic language model available. Right now it's O3 or O3 Pro. Or like in Gemini 2.5 or 2.5
on that O3 Pro.
OpenAI has kind of 2 classes of models, some that think out loud and some that don't. The free, easy ones to access that you also talk with in real time don't have thinking, right? They just respond immediately, right, with tokens. The thinking models are much more expensive for OpenAI to run, but you can, if you're in the free version, you can click on tools and then think longer, and then it'll use the thinking model. If you're paying for it, you can choose the thinking model right off the bat. So you take that whole conversation, you put that into O3, and you say, now help me make a pitch deck for this, right? For this idea, right? Or help me form an executive or an execution plan for
including
this business,
images.
Right? You could even generate images, yeah, right? That maybe in a different model, but first, like, sketch out what's my differentiated value proposition here. What's my unique selling point? What's my Tam Sam song, right? What's my total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, etc. Right? Help me explore like the actual business case for this. And those thinking models are really good at that, right? And kind of consolidating your ideas and shaping them and putting them into a plan, right? So those are 2 like really practical ways that you can use AI as an entrepreneur. If you're farther along in your process, you're actually executing, there's all kinds of things. Like you use Manus to generate, your pitch deck or generate a website, right? A first generation of your website. You can use it to begin to code up a prototype, and say if it's a software business or something. There's lots of stuff out there, lots of tools and platforms. But I think at the end of the day, it comes back down to remaining kind of in your throne or in the driver's seat with these tools and seeing them as an extension or amplification of your own deep wisdom and intuition. Check it with people, right? Don't use it as a replacement for your business partner, your business colleague. Use it as an amplification of yourself, and then check all those assumptions, right? Hey, is this crazy, or is this the wrong kind of crazy, right? Is it the right kind of crazy? That kind of stuff. I think especially when we start having humanoid robots walking around among us doing actual tasks in the world.
Because that's going to happen.
That's right around the corner. 2026, everybody, right? Like humanoid robots will be in the streets. Maybe down in Bhutan, it may take longer, but San Francisco, for sure. You know, I guarantee there's a few robot housekeepers already being tested, you know, in the Bay Area.
Well, I hope Will Smith saves us from those hordes of coming out of the tall building.
I think the, you know, Asimov, right, and the 3 laws of robotics and stuff really assumed like a kind of a different paradigm than we actually find ourselves in.
Yeah.
The risk is not so much that robots will have the same kind of like violent malice arise within their being or something. That's kind of a projection of the way that humans do violence, right? And risk, right, and danger. It's more that it's these subtle things, right? It's the slowly losing our capabilities, you know, that our ability to fold laundry atrophies, right? You know, and like our ability to actually cook for ourselves, or our ability to raise children. Like there's these things that just will sort of gradually fade away. There's kind of the way that like I don't remember how to do long division, right? That
I can't remember a phone number for the life of me.
Yeah, like I was taught those things. I spent years learning how to do them by hand. I don't really know how to, because I have a calculator. I have my iPhone. I can just do, you know, and like here in Bhutan, right? Like the genuine risk of the kind of like engine of intelligence for the country, for any business that wants to use these tools or has to use these tools to stay competitive, the genuine risk of that engine being something that has to be purchased from outside, right? Like the data center capacity to actually run these intelligence models, right? That maybe is the biggest thing that I see here is if you are an entrepreneur in Bhutan, you're using ChatGPT, right? Or you're using Gemini right now, but like, or you're using DeepSeek. Your data is going out of the country, you know, your documents, your thoughts. If you haven't turned off training, like all that information is going to OpenAI or Google. And like, maybe you trust them with that they're going to keep it secure. But maybe there's actually like laws against that. You know, like if you're in government, you're not supposed to upload government documents into ChatGPT, sensitive information, et cetera, right? So that means that, okay, well, if I can't use ChatGPT, I guess I can't use AI at all, and then your capabilities are hindered in some way relative to other countries or other regions of the world. So it's like I see it as actually like a matter of like supporting the entrepreneurial and like business fabric of Bhutan to the same extent as like finance capital or electricity. Like to be able to provide intelligence is actually like a baseline need that exists right now.
Right.
You know, like these kinds of intelligence amplifiers are quickly becoming as necessary as a computer itself or as different sorts of software. And if Bhutan cannot adequately serve that intelligence within the country in a private way within like a year, like the risk of falling tremendously behind is great.
Ideal scenario. No budget.
No budget or unlimited budget?
Unlimited budget.
Generous Bitcoin budget.
That's right. And unlimited hydroelectric power.
Which basically exists here, you know, gigawatts worth,
What do you recommend Bhutan
don't focus on building the most giant data center. Like there's plans to build a $450 million data center by 2029, probably in Gellifu, right? To relate to the GMC. It's right there close to where the traffic is coming into the country, physical and data traffic. Yeah. In the meantime, because 2029 is like 4 years is like forever in like AI time, right? Like 4 years ago, we didn't have ChatGPT, right? Think about that. Now ChatGPT has 1 billion users globally and is making $4 billion in revenue annually. Like crazy. Stuff changes fast in AI. So before 2029, start building like modular micro data centers here with like, 64 or 96 like clusters of GPUs and place them close to the hydropower or place them near like the telecom connections, somewhere that they can have cheap, reliable power and are connected to the grid of to the communications infrastructure here, where they can host like language models that are trained here with Zonka, with get everybody on board, providing good, high quality conversational data to these models now. Like good data doesn't exist in Bhutan. That's one big problem that I've found recently at scale. And the kind of compute capacity necessary to train a model, even if the data existed, that just isn't physically here in the country right now. And the infrastructure that is here isn't connected in the right way to make the best use of it, because it's kind of scattered again between different departments. So it's like begin building these like slightly larger modular data centers. They can be brought online within 6 to 9 months, right? It doesn't take 4 years to build these kinds of things. And start to offer homegrown intelligence in Bhutan, right? That's like carbon negative and tuned to the values of the people, and all of that. Like that can happen now. It doesn't need to wait 4 years. And otherwise Bhutan falls behind. And I don't want to see that happen. That's why I'm here,
Same thing we do in baking and culinary, homegrown.
Yeah, homegrown.
Local is better. Stephen, I cannot thank you enough. You blow my mind every time. And one last question, I got to hit it.
Okay.
I think you're the first American I've had on this program. You came to Bhutan. You've been to Phobjika. You've been to Ha Valley. Tell me about what it meant to Stephen to come to Bhutan and your first and biggest impressions.
I mean, like the first time I walked off the plane, and like the air hit me, and like the mountains, my first, and seeing like the giant mural of His Majesty and the family and everything, like it was this feeling of like, yes, like, and and to some extent that fades. The longer you spend in a place, you kind of get used to it or whatever, right? But there are moments where I'm like riding my bicycle like down the streets of Thimphu. And like the clouds and the light are doing this thing, and like the air, and like where I'm just like, whoa, so much gratitude. It's a special place.
Likewise. When I do have that, feeling of like, oh yeah, I've seen it. It's, we all, as you say, develop routines, and the iconography, you sort of notice less over time. You go into one of these hundreds of year old zongs and it all comes back.
Yeah.
Those people the aesthetics were so finely tuned. These are people that lived 400, 500 years ago or more. And these paintings, and of course, in my mind, they're improved by the patina, by the wear and tear, what the Japanese call wabi-sabi, how it degrades but improves over time.
Right.
That's why I love going back into those spaces and just really becoming inspired again.
I also, just in a simple way, as an American, appreciate the lack of billboards everywhere.
And McDonald's.
And like these gaudy signs along the roads, like. It's a small, subtle thing. It's not the only place in the world where those are absent, but it's nice. It's nice.
Powerful.
Yeah. Thank you Bill. I just want to
thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
It's a gift of attention, and questions are so valuable. And thank you watching for your time and attention as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Think for yourself. Come up with your own ideas. What is mindful AI? What does Bhutan need around this? You're the next entrepreneur. So. Get started right now.
Let's start the conversation.
You got no excuse. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.